When I was younger, I never thought I'd spend my old age building a house for someone else to live in. I thought by 63, I'd be slowing down, maybe fishing more, maybe sitting on the porch with my wife, God rest her soul, telling her about the birds landing in the backyard. But life doesn't go the way you plan. Clara, my only daughter, she was the reason I kept working those long hours in the shop, even after my joints started aching and my back screamed at me. Every beam, every chair, every cabinet I built, I tucked away a little money. Over decades, it added up to something I could be proud of. And when Clara said she was getting married, I knew exactly what I wanted to give her, a place of her own, a home, something no one could take away. That house in the suburbs wasn't fancy by most standards, but it was solid. A craftsman's house. Fresh paint, a garden out front, woodwork I oversaw myself. I imagined Clara starting her life there, filling the rooms with laughter, pictures on the walls, maybe a child or two running around. It was supposed to be a gift from my heart. A gift from her mother too, in a way, because I swear, when I chose the tiles in the kitchen, I heard my late wife's voice whispering, "Pick the blue ones, she'll love the blue." At first, I thought Victor, the man Clara was going to marry, seemed decent enough. Polite, careful with his words, the kind of guy who holds the door open and calls you sir. I wanted to believe he'd take care of my daughter the way she deserved. But you can't always see a man's spine until life bends him a little. And as it turns out, Victor didn't just bend. He broke. It started before the wedding even happened. I drove over one afternoon, eager to show Clara the final touches on her new place. But when I pulled up, there were cars in the driveway I didn't recognize. I walked in and it was like stepping into someone else's house. Loud voices, doors slamming, laughter that didn't belong. And there they were, Victor's parents, his brother, his brother's wife. They had moved in, not visiting, not helping with preparations. Moved in. I remember standing in the living room, still smelling the polish on the brand new table I'd set there just the week before. Victor's mother plopped herself down and set her dirty shoes right on it. Mud streaking across the glass like she was wiping her feet on a doormat. My blood boiled, but I kept quiet, just long enough to see if anyone else would notice. They didn't, or maybe they did and they didn't care. His father was even worse. He lit a cigarette inside the house. And when he finished, he ground the ashes into the edge of a custom shelf I'd built with my own hands. A shelf I'd sanded smooth and stained until it shined. That mark, that black, ugly scar, I swear it felt like he'd burned it into my chest instead. And Clara, my sweet Clara, she just stood there, caught between embarrassment and silence. She looked at Victor, hoping he'd say something, anything. He didn't. He just shrugged, hunched his shoulders like a schoolboy caught cheating, and muttered, "They're just settling in, don't worry about it." Settling in, that's when his mother announced with a laugh that wasn't funny at all, "We'll take the master bedroom. Clara doesn't need all that space anyway. She belongs in the kitchen. A smaller room will do just fine." I swear the air went out of the room. Clara's face fell, and my hands clenched so tight I could feel my nails biting into my palms. That was the moment I realized something had gone terribly wrong. This wasn't a family joining together. This was a family taking over. It's funny, isn't it? You work your whole life to give your child something better, and in a blink, you see strangers treating it like it's theirs. You see your daughter being pushed aside in her own home, turned into some background character in a story that was supposed to be hers. I sat there, watching them unpack their boxes, claim rooms, talk about knocking down walls like they were flipping a property they'd bought themselves. And in that moment, I heard my wife's voice again, clear as day, telling me, "Don't let anyone disrespect our daughter, not while you're still breathing." And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about a house. It wasn't about walls and furniture and money spent. This was about dignity, about respect. And if Victor couldn't stand up for my Clara, then I damn well would. But I'll tell you this, what came next, nobody saw coming. And that's where our story really begins. If you've ever felt like someone tried to take advantage of your kindness, or if you've ever stood by someone you love when the world tried to push them down, stay with me. And hey, if stories like this mean something to you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more to share. I remember that first week after they moved in like it was burned into my memory. It wasn't just the noise or the clutter. It was the constant stream of complaints. The Harrises acted like they were touring some rundown motel, not stepping into the house I'd spent months fixing up. Victor's mother wrinkled her nose the second she stepped outside. This neighborhood feels like a prison. Every house has bars and gates. No one even leaves their doors open. What kind of community is this? Then she jabbed her finger at the iron gate I'd installed for security. That thing looks like you're guarding a bank. Tear it down. Relatives shouldn't have to stand outside like beggars when they visit. Her husband chimed in right after, shaking his head. Yeah, too stiff, too cold. A real family home should be open, inviting. And then he lit another cigarette like he was giving a lecture, letting the smoke curl right up into the ceiling I just painted fresh white. I sat in the corner of the living room, quiet. My hands were clenched around something small in my pocket, the old wedding band of my late wife. I carried it with me like a talisman. Every time their voices got louder, I twisted that ring against my palm, reminding myself of the promise I'd made years ago, to protect Clara, to keep her safe even when she was grown and living her own life. But it was hard to keep my cool when they stomped around the place as if they owned it. The fridge was always half empty because they ate whatever they found. Leftovers, Clara's groceries, even the pie a neighbor had dropped off as a gift. And when I pointed it out, Victor's brother just laughed. Relax, old man. You don't need much food anyway. Then came the car. My truck isn't fancy, but it's reliable, and it's the one thing I've always been proud of after decades of work. I came outside one morning and saw Victor's dad and brother pulling out of the driveway in it. No one had asked. No note, no keys left on the counter. And when they finally rolled back later, the tank was empty. His brother smirked as he tossed me the keys. Guess you'll have to fill it up. You don't drive much at your age. Clara caught the look on my face. I think that's when her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. She turned to Victor, desperate, whispering, "Please say something. Please tell them this isn't right." And what did he do? He just shrugged. "Don't make a big deal out of it. My parents are just like that. Let it go." "Let it go," that's what he said. Like disrespect is some tiny stain you can wipe away with a rag. Like watching your daughter get pushed around in her own home is something a father can just ignore. I sat there that night, the ring still digging into my palm, and I thought about what it all meant. If Clara married into this family, this wasn't going to stop. This wasn't just about muddy shoes on a glass table or a cigarette burn on a shelf. This was the rest of her life being treated like a servant, being expected to stay quiet and grateful while others lived off her. And the thought hit me like a hammer to the chest. If I stayed silent now, I'd be setting her up for a lifetime of silence. If I didn't draw a line, she would never know she had the right to. That realization sat heavy in me. I could feel my throat tighten, my chest burning with the weight of it, and maybe some of you listening know that feeling too. The moment you realize someone you love is being taken advantage of and the world expects you to look away. Well, I wasn't about to look away. It didn't take long before their true colors came out. The polite smiles and thank yous that Victor's family had shown at first disappeared, like masks tossed aside once they felt comfortable. One evening, I walked into the living room and found them sitting around my daughter as if she were a child being scolded. They weren't even embarrassed to say it straight to her face. Victor's brother leaned forward and said, "Listen, Clara, it just makes sense. I'll move my wife and our 2 kids in here. The house is big, too big for just you and Victor. It's a waste otherwise." His wife nodded, already pulling out her phone like she was planning the move that second. Then Victor's mother chimed in, her voice sharp, almost mocking. "And of course, the master bedroom should go to us. That little room down the hall is fine for newlyweds. You don't need all that space. When you start having children, maybe you can think about a bigger room. Until then, leave it for us." I saw Clara's face pale, her mouth parting like she wanted to argue, but they didn't give her a chance. His father leaned back in the chair, smoke curling from another cigarette, and said with finality, "You'll handle all the cooking. A woman ought to be in the kitchen anyway. We'll cover the rest of the house. That's fair." Fair. That word tasted rotten to me. Clara's hands were trembling, clutching the arm of the sofa. My girl, who had worked so hard to stand on her own 2 feet, reduced to tears in her own home by people who hadn't contributed a dime. And Victor, he sat there with his head down, saying nothing. In the middle of their demands, a glass slipped from the edge of the coffee table, shattering across the hardwood floor. For a second, everyone froze, the sound hanging in the air like a warning. The broken pieces sparkled under the light, and I swear it felt like a mirror of what was happening to my daughter's life, splintering, sharp, dangerous. That was it for Clara. Her voice cracked, but it carried. "This house belongs to my father. It's his blood and sweat, his sacrifice. You have no right to tell me how to live in it. None." Her tears spilled over then, not just from anger but from the humiliation of being pushed past her breaking point. Victor's father blew out a long stream of smoke and narrowed his eyes at her. "Your father gave this to you because you're marrying my son. That makes it our family's house. You're not the only one with a claim anymore. You'd better remember that." Those words cut deep. I saw Clara's shoulders collapse as if a weight had been dropped on her. And me, I sat there, my jaw tight, my chest burning. My hand found its way to the old wedding ring again, the one I kept in my pocket. I could almost hear my wife's voice, soft but firm, echoing from years ago. "Promise me, Edward. Promise me you'll protect her dignity. Don't let anyone treat her like she's less than she is." And in that moment I knew. This wasn't just bickering over bedrooms or chores. This was about respect, about whether my daughter's future would be hers or stolen by people who saw her as nothing more than free labor. The line had been crossed, and I realized I wasn't going to stay silent much longer. The room had been filling with smoke and tension for so long, it felt like it might choke us all. I sat there, watching Clara's face crumple under the weight of their arrogance, and something inside me finally snapped. My palm came down hard against the table, so hard the glass of water sitting there tipped, fell, and shattered into a spray across the floor. The sound cracked through the air like thunder. Everyone froze. My voice came out rough but steady. "Folks can look down on me all they want. I'm just an old carpenter, I've heard it all before. But no one, And I mean no one, disrespects my daughter in her own home. You could have heard a pin drop after that. Then Victor tried to pipe up, mumbling something about keeping calm. But when I saw the way he didn't even flinch while his parents crushed Clara, I grabbed him by the collar and pulled him toward the door. My voice roared out before I even knew it was mine. This isn't a boarding house. This is my daughter's home, and if you can't respect it, you don't belong here. Victor stumbled back, wide-eyed, as if he just realized I wasn't the meek old man he thought I was. His father started shouting, his mother screeching insults, but the sound of their chaos spilled right through the open windows. Before long, neighbors were peeking out, some walking over. Phones came up, recording, capturing every filthy word, every arrogant gesture from the Harris clan. One man yelled, "I'm calling the cops." And suddenly the family's bravado cracked. They knew their show was no longer behind closed doors. The whole street was watching, judging. That's when they started retreating, dragging their bags, muttering curses, but moving fast. Their faces were red with shame, their voices breaking under the weight of exposure. And Clara, sweet Clara, she didn't just stand there this time. She rushed to me, wrapped her arms tight around my shoulders, and through her tears she finally found her voice. "Dad," she said, steady for the first time all day, "I'm not marrying him, not now, not ever." I felt her body shake against mine, but in her words there was strength. Strength I'd prayed she'd find. My eyes burned, not from anger this time, but from pride. Neighbors clapped softly, some whispering, "Good for her." Others just nodded like they'd witnessed something bigger than an argument. They'd seen a father draw a line in the sand. And me, I just held her close and thought of her mother's voice again. Don't let anyone strip away her dignity. That night, I knew I had kept my promise. It was only a few days after the blow-up at the house when another punch to the gut landed, this time not with fists but with words on a screen. Clara called me late at night, her voice shaking, and forwarded me an email from Victor. I opened it and there it was, a full spreadsheet. Neatly itemized, line by line, every coffee, every bouquet of flowers, every cab ride he had ever paid for in their relationship. At the bottom, bolded like it was some kind of official bill, $3, $142.50. I stared at it, stunned. My daughter had spent years paying for dinners, for birthdays, for half the things he claimed were his, and yet here he was, reducing love to an invoice. But the humiliation wasn't done. A few mornings later, Clara walked into her office building only to freeze at the entrance. There, right on the sidewalk, stood Victor, his parents, and his brother. They weren't ashamed. No, they were holding up poster boards, giant white boards with the same itemized list written in thick black marker. Clara owes Victor money. One sign read. His mother was shouting like a street preacher, pointing at my daughter as she walked in. Employees slowed down, whispering. Phones went up, recording the circus. And within minutes, the clips were already bouncing around online. By the time I got the call and rushed over, the lobby was a storm of murmurs and embarrassment. Clara sat rigid at her desk, cheeks red, eyes fixed on the floor. That was enough for me. I walked straight through the crowd and faced the Harris family. My voice was calm, steady, maybe too calm for how furious I was inside. You want to put everything on paper? Fine, let's put everything on paper. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the small leather notebook I'd carried for years. I flipped it open and one by one started reading aloud. Hospital bill for your father. When he had that scare last spring, $1,500 paid by me. I looked up, their faces already paling. Birthday gift last year, new phone, $1,200 bought by Clara. I turned a page. Groceries, utilities, dinners, gas. Half the time she paid for you. Add it all up and it's not Clara who owes you. It's you who owes her 3 times over. The crowd of co-workers erupted. Some laughed out loud, others clapped, and the whispers turned into open mockery. 3 grand, that's what this is about. Someone shouted. Another voice chimed in, man, she's the one who should be sending you a bill. The Harris family's bravado melted right there in front of us. Victor's mother tried to argue, but her voice was drowned in laughter. His father tugged at his collar, muttering under his breath. And Victor, he just stood frozen, staring at the floor, the poster board slipping from his hand. Finally, I closed the notebook and tucked it back into my pocket. So if this was about money, I said loud enough for everyone to hear, the truth's clear. You don't just owe Clara, you owe her respect, and you'll never be able to pay that back. Silence followed, and then the Harris family did the only thing they could. They lowered their heads, turned, and shuffled out the door while the crowd laughed and recorded every step. For Clara, that moment mattered more than anything. Not just because the truth was out, but because the shame no longer belonged to her. It was theirs. And this time, the world saw it too. Not long after the spectacle at Clara's office, when I thought maybe, just maybe, the Harris family had finally run out of ways to humiliate themselves, the harassment started again. This time, it wasn't posters or spreadsheets, it was online. One morning, Clara woke up to a barrage of texts from friends and co-workers. "Have you seen this?" they asked, sending her screenshots. There it was, doctored videos, spliced photos, anonymous accounts painting her as some kind of gold digger who used Victor for money and tossed him aside. The cruel part was how carefully it was done. Old photos cropped, private moments twisted into something ugly. Within hours, hashtags were floating around, strangers leaving comments under her social media posts. And then came the letter. Not an email this time. A handwritten envelope slipped under her apartment door. Inside was page after page of emotional blackmail. "Clara," it began, "I can't live without you. If you don't come back, I don't know what I'll do. If you love me, save me before I ruin myself." At the bottom, the words blurred where tears, or maybe whiskey, had smudged the ink. Clara was shaking when she showed me. Her hands trembled so hard I had to take the letter from her before it tore. My first instinct was to storm over to end this with fists, the way part of me always wanted to, but I stopped myself. My late wife's voice rang in my head. "Don't just protect her for today, make sure she's safe tomorrow." So I did something different this time. I called my old friend Martin, a lawyer who'd handled messy harassment cases before. We compiled every screenshot, every video, every threatening letter. We built a file so thick it barely fit in a single folder. And then we took it down to the courthouse. A week later, the police showed up at Victor's apartment. Neighbors leaned out their windows as the officers knocked, loud and clear. Victor answered the door, still groggy, wearing a stained t-shirt. He tried to smile, tried to play dumb, but the officer didn't waste words. He unfolded the paper and read it right there, a restraining order. Victor was legally barred from contacting Clara. No calls, no texts, no letters, no anonymous messages. Nothing. The look on his face, it was like the floor dropped out from under him. For the first time, he wasn't the one humiliating someone else. He was the one exposed. His parents peeked from behind him, whispering, "What's happening?" But the officer kept reading, his voice steady. "Any violation of this order will result in arrest." And the neighbors saw it all. Some shook their heads, some smirked. A few even pulled out their phones. Victor wasn't just losing Clara. He was losing whatever scraps of dignity he had left. That night, Clara finally breathed. She wasn't smiling, not yet, but her shoulders loosened in a way I hadn't seen in months. "Dad," she whispered, "for the first time I feel like this is really over." And I looked at her, my heart aching but proud, because this wasn't just about us standing up anymore. It was about the law, the truth, the system stepping in to say, enough. For everyone watching, it was a reminder. Sometimes strength doesn't mean throwing punches or shouting louder. Sometimes it means building your case, standing your ground, and letting justice slam the door shut for you. And in that moment, I knew we'd finally turned the page. Clara could have let all that bitterness drag her down, but instead she threw herself into her work. She stayed late at the office, not because she was running from her past, but because she finally wanted to prove to herself, not anyone else, that she was stronger than what she'd been through. Weeks later, she stood in front of a packed conference room, slides glowing behind her, her voice steady, confident. And I watched from the back as people who had doubted her leaned in, nodding, scribbling notes. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. No whispers, no rumors this time, just respect. Afterward, during a networking lunch, fate decided to give her a different kind of chance. That's when she met Ethan Moore. He wasn't flashy. He didn't brag. He asked her real questions about her work, listened and laughed in a way that wasn't mocking but warm, steady. Clara told me later, "Dad, it wasn't like sparks flying. It was more like, for once, I could breathe easy around someone." A few weeks passed, and Ethan invited her to meet his family. I braced myself, but what I saw caught me off guard. His parents welcomed her at the door like she'd always belonged. His mother set an extra plate at the table without fuss, and his father asked her about her own dreams. Not what she could cook, not what she could give up, but what she wanted for herself. No demands, no judgments, just simple kindness. I sat there quietly, watching my daughter laugh in a way I hadn't heard in years. Her shoulders were relaxed, her eyes bright, like the weight she'd been carrying had finally lifted. And in that moment, I felt my wife's presence so strong it made my throat ache. I whispered inside my heart, "Do you see this, love? Our girl finally found a place where she's not used, not belittled, but cherished." Clara caught me watching her and smiled, and I swear I could see both her mother and me reflected in that look. She had walked through fire, and somehow she had come out not broken, but stronger, sharper, and more herself than ever. And for the first time in a long while, I let myself lean back, breathe deep, and feel peace, because I knew she wasn't just surviving anymore, she was living. It was a quiet evening when the past tried to claw its way back one more time. Clara and I had just left a small dinner with Ethan's family. Nothing fancy, just laughter, good food, and the kind of warmth we hadn't known in a long time. As we stepped out into the night air, there he was. Victor, standing under the dim glow of the streetlight, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, his eyes hollow but still burning with envy. He didn't say much at first, just stared at Clara, then at Ethan and back again. His voice was low, bitter. "So this is it. You walk away from me and end up here, smiling, happy, like I never mattered." Clara didn't flinch this time. She stood tall, steady, the way her mother used to when she wanted to make a point without raising her voice. And I stepped forward, placing myself between them, not with anger but with a calm that came from knowing the fight was already over. I looked Victor in the eye and said, "I built that house with these hands, every nail, every beam. But the real gift I gave my daughter wasn't wood or stone. It was dignity. It was the strength to walk away from anyone who tried to take it from her. And that, No matter how hard you try, you'll never be able to touch. He opened his mouth, maybe to argue, maybe to beg, but nothing came out. Because the truth is, he knew. His power over her was gone. Clara reached for my hand then, her fingers warm and steady in mine. She smiled, not at Victor, but at me. And in that moment, I realized the cycle was broken. The girl who once cried in silence now walked beside me with pride, carrying her own peace. I turned back just once, not with anger, but with the finality of a door closing. Living well, I said quietly, is the ultimate revenge. And with that, we walked away. For anyone listening now, that's the heart of it. Revenge doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be cruel. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is just choosing to live better, to protect what matters, and to hold on to the kind of peace no one can steal. Thank you for spending your time with us here at Family Shadows. If you believe that true love, dignity, and happiness are the greatest gifts a parent can give their child, let us know in the comments. Share this story with someone who needs the reminder, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Because these stories aren't just about family, they're about all of us.